One more time for the greatest team in America.
In '86, in the playoffs, we averaged 51 points a game. We never got stopped when we got on the opponent's side of the 50. We scored every time.
Back in those days, we did push-ups for every touchdown, and then they multiplied, and we would score like 48 to 60 points every game, and it was 95 degrees on the field, and it was tough. I was in the best shape of my life during those years.
The '86 team would compete with anybody because we were veteran. We were very confident. I had a total grasp of the offense now. It was no play that I couldn't get us to. I had the green light from Paul to check, to move plays around. We would go into a game and it'd take us a series to go, okay, pretty much gonna do these guys today because they can't hang, because they can't stop the option. If you couldn't stop the option, then we knew you were in trouble. And we had a lot of teams that just could not stop the option, right? That group was well connected. We knew each other well. We could run the offense in our sleep. And now it was a case of, can we maintain our focus?
Keep in mind that the 1986 team was a veteran team. They had been playing together for a long time. And by nature, most of them were loose. They almost drove me crazy on the bus with their singing, their music, and all that stuff. I wondered how in the world they could be thinking about winning a football game with an outpour of attitude like that.
Tonight, baby, tonight.
But they had a way of flipping the switch.
Looking back on it now, I think about what I used to say about the teams, the players. When the reporters used to ask him about how great our teams were and all the great athletes, he said, no, we have good athletes that play great together. It's probably the same philosophy when putting together his staff. Was he went and got the right coaches to fit his system, to fit his culture and what he was wanting to do. Because you remember, we were startup and there wasn't a whole lot of money for these coaches. You ask them what they were making back then, and it wasn't a whole lot of nothing. And a lot of grad assistants, for instance, and working for free, and whoever he could put together. Heck, that's how Doc Spurgeon came about. He was an English professor here, pulled him in.
You know, Doc never got to see a whole lot of Georgia Southern football. Back then, we didn't have the luxury of video and games and sending things through email. Doc was a lot of times on site.
He didn't fly. He got in that car, that big old car of his, and he would take off.
Hello, I'm Dr. Pat Spurgeon, scout for the Georgia Southern Eagles. While I'm traveling those thousands of miles on the road for the Eagles, I never worry about my family on the road.
He'd leave on a Thursday after practice, usually, and then he was back writing scouting reports and delivering them on Monday.
He was a deep kind of philosopher type mentality, and it was amazing.
Felt like I was in a philosophy class or English lit or something at times. It was always I want to say a performance. It wasn't just, they run a 4-3 defense and the outside linebacker has good speed. He would go into everything about that linebacker and that player, how he acted on the sidelines. There was always good versus evil. There was a plot in there. There was all the characters, and he would go into excruciating detail about the teams that we were facing. And then every team we were playing was the greatest team we would ever play.
When I was president of Southern Boosters back 85 to 95, we started a weekly Southern Boosters luncheon, and it was held at the Williams Center on campus. Coach Russell would give an update on the game, and give an update on the team. And then we closed it with Doc Spurgeon, and he'd come up in all black. Oh, he was the doomsday guy. And he'd grab a hold of that lectern, and he'd tell how big these players were for the other team, how fast they were, how good they were, and how and he would shake his head, and he would say, I don't know how we'll ever win. And then he would close it off by saying, let me tell you something. I think the blue and white are going to show up big time on Saturday. And my prediction is that we'll be all right.
I remember him saying that about Savannah State. And he went on and on about this receiver. Greatest receiver he's ever seen. So he talked like this, his fingers. Greatest receiver I've ever seen. But he went on and on. This is Savannah State. We were laughing. Everybody's like, whatever. Yeah, I'd say Shannon Sharpe lived up to everything Doc Spurgeon said and then some. He put on a show out here.
He was a huge, huge asset to our program. I just think we won a lot of football games because of what he was able to do.
Doc Spurgeon, what a legend. What an absolute legend.
Those guys were hungry to repeat, and probably the biggest game for us was in Reno. I think, again, they were undefeated, and they were giving up about 50 or 60 yards a game rushing, and we went out there and got them for probably 400.
They were a rowdy bunch. They called them the zonies. They get to the game in the end zone, just the end zone would be packed. Somehow their structure was you had to walk right through by them to get to your sideline. Good design if you want to rattle your opponent. And you had little kids come up to you, we're gonna do this to you. You be like, get out of here. You talk back to them. And I was pretty pissed off with them. Just the arrogance. The first touchdown we scored, I spent the ball and pointed at them. And they start throwing microphones, all kind of stuff at them. I don't know what all they were throwing, but that was, I'm doing this, and so I get to the sideline. I run into Coach Russell. He grabs me. He goes, hey. I'm going, what? I just scored what? We don't do that. I'm going, hey, we don't do that. I go, all right, Coach, you're right. We don't point at fans. We don't do nothing but get the ball to the official and come back to the sideline and get ready to do it again. And that was one of the few times I was a little out of character, if you want to call it out of character. And so we had to calm them down. We calmed them down pretty quickly. A couple stops from my defense. They had once again, another dynamic offense. We always hear about other team offenses. Offense, that's all we heard about. And we just was hearing about the offense. We going, well, we thought we had a decent offense. And so once we start hearing about other people's offenses, we felt like, hey, we're going to show them who has the better offense today. A couple of turnovers, if not for those 2 turnovers, and we were driving on those turnovers, we beat them by more than 10. It was nowhere near close as the score indicated at the end, and they know it too.
I missed the first national championship game. I said that night to Deborah, I said, if that ever happens again, I'll never miss another championship game. Well, who would ever thought we'd be in it the next year?
What do we know about Arkansas State, Coach?
We know they're tough, Bill. They're the best team we played, and I like to think the best 2 1AA teams were in the finals. And it remains to be seen whether they're as good as they think they are.
As Tracy calls him out, he's going to keep, cuts inside, nice blocking. There goes Tracy up to the 50-yard line and across midfield and into Arkansas State territory.
That was just a great move by Tracy, Bill. The end was sitting there, had him, and Tracy just cut up inside of him and broke a couple tackles and just did a super job on that play.
Well, being a broadcaster is not an easy thing. In working with your play-by-play guy and trying to give the color, you got to have a mindset to where you're telling people something that they can understand, that's going on the field. And that was hard. I wasn't very happy with my performance.
The game probably helped a little bit.
Yeah, the game was awesome.
And Tracy Ham will try. Gerald Harris over the top. Touchdown! Georgia Southern has scored the first touchdown of the evening. Up on first down and 10 for the 15. He keeps it himself. He wants to turn the corner. He's going to pitch it later down the sideline. Touchdown, Whiteside.
I'll never forget getting ready to go to the game that night, and Dr. Spurgeon was down in the lobby, and we were standing there talking. I said, well, Doc, what you thinking? He said, Mike, they got a running back that runs straight up, and if we put a helmet on him, he's going to drop that football. And there wasn't many plays into the game, it happened. And I knew then we were going to be okay.
I thought our defense just played really well. And like I said, we get a lot of credit around here for offensive football, But our defense played really, really well. They held that offense in check, got some key turnovers, and we were really good at capitalizing turnovers into points. When I looked at their defense, I go, okay, they're a pretty stout defense. A couple guys were a little stiff, but for the most part, they were a good defense. And we had seen some of the stuff they had done throughout the year, but after a couple series, I go, wow, they don't know what we're doing. Furman at least knew what we were doing running the ball. They knew what we were doing throwing the ball. They had no idea what we were doing offensively because we just had them reeling. And once we get you reeling, there's so many things we could get to that it was hard for you to balance back out. And by the time they thought they had figured out, the game was over. They hushed up pretty quickly because they knew they was in a ball game.
The coach at Arkansas State said, trying to tackle Tracy was like trying to tackle the wind.
Second down play, going to try Gerald. Nope, keep it himself. Tracy trying to get a block on the right side. Comes to the 25 and he breaks away. He's going to score. Score! Touchdown, Tracy Ham.
You always like to go to the play before. If you go to the play before that one, Ricky, I see it, right? I got my eyes going, oh, it's there. He jumps offside. And you can see me going, what are you doing? Then I go, okay, get back. I'm going to run the same play. So I'm going like this, run it again, run it. The case was looking at the angle of the safety. He came as flat as you can come across, which is typical because they thought we was running the ball. And then when I popped out to throw, I didn't have much time because the guy was hitting me. And I saw the guy blitzing the A-gap then, and I just got a little wrist flip off, and Rick was able to run under it.
Tracy, quick pass, trying to get Ricky Harris, and he breaks away. Ricky at 50, Ricky Harris 35, Ricky Harris, he's going to go all the way. Touchdown, Georgia Southern, just blew him out of there.
And if anybody know Ricky Harris, speed was his thing. Ricky probably was the fastest. If I said second fastest, he'd be upset, but he probably was the fastest on the team. And I didn't know that was going to be my last play, but I'd had enough that game. I was satisfied because you always want other guys to participate. Our goal was to get out the game as quick as possible. That means we beating somebody pretty good, go on the sideline and have a good time. So we was on the sideline, and really, everybody always wanted to touch Coach Russell's head, right? And we could never, get ourselves worked up to touch his head. And they go, okay, we're gonna pour water on him, and then we're gonna rub his head. And everybody looking like, you think that's a good idea? And so when they dumped the water on him, you could see all us rubbing his head, right? And really we were sneaking a rub on his head.
Arkansas State is not calling a timeout. The clock's running down. The game
we were
about
national champions for the second time in a row, consecutive national championships, which hadn't been done in Division I AA to that point. And the story is still amazing.
That was one of the, for me, when I look back over that moment, all those moments that created my college career 40 years ago, wow, I just can't, this has been an amazing run. I'm just, for me and for the guys that came here in '82, we have such a bond. And every member that comes through now, every Eagle, once an Eagle, always an Eagle. We just have the same love and same respect for anybody who put on the blue and white. They're part of a group that has a lot of pride and a lot of respect in the college football industry.
We're tired, we're wrinkled, I haven't had a haircut, we're appreciative as hell. We have 26 victories in the last 2 years. Nobody in America has done that. Nobody